Good evening, everyone. Appreciate you guys coming out. Can everybody hear me in the back, even with this mask on? Okay. Appreciate you guys coming out. We got a short agenda tonight because there are two things that we really need to focus on. We had something come before planning that we had deferred so that we could talk about it, and that's the potential development over on Cato. And then the second part of this financial conversation that we started last week with Wilson Bank and Trust, or 2 weeks ago. And that's because each of those conversations is related to each of the types of developments that we've been talking about or will be facing. This evening, we've got Herman Hicks from First Horizon. A lot of you guys may recognize him. He does elevated development and a few other things. He's a constant at community meetings, especially at the Bordeaux Business Coalition meetings and a few other things. You'll see him doing a lot of stuff out of the mayor's office and with other council members. So we've got him tonight. We're going to let him do his part first because it's the shortest and do the Q&A. And then we're going to let you guys spend the rest of the time focused on the Cato project. And Mr. Dale's here. And are you the only one for the applicant? Okay, so he's the only one here. Well, here's the thing. We can, but the reason why we structured it that way originally was because, and if you were on the Zoom, I think we talked about some of that there. It's knowing the metrics that we need to know when we're talking about doing charrette processes, when we're talking about the different types of developments or proposed projects. So we're working with better information when we're interacting with folks that are trying to build something or do something. And that's why it was originally structured that way. If you guys want to switch it so you can take off, then we can go ahead and do that. You mind, Herman? You said you need 45 minutes. So we can do 8 o'clock. So we'll start your part 7:30. Can you do that? Or do you have?
And you can do that 45 minutes from now.
Well, we'll circle back at 7:30 and do that. Let's get time to work with Mr. Dale here. So Roy, if you want to come up and talk about the project, I can do that.
I pass that out. Okay, so I'm Roy Dale with Dale and Associates. I'm a civil engineer, planner in Nashville. I've been in business since 1983. I represent a lot of people in the zoning process in Davidson County. And so I had a client, they're from Bowling Green, and they actually do housing developments. They do a mixture of uses. I think they're doing a project right now in Millersville. And then I took a piece of property in Springfield. It was about 90 acres, and I had them approved for 550 homes in Springfield. It was 200 single-family homes, about 100 townhouses and cottages, and then probably 220 multifamily units. So they approached me on this property. I think it's the Overby property over off Ashland City Highway. When you are driving north on Bradley Parkway and you get up on Ashland City Highway and you move to the west, it's about 3 parcels down, and there's several parcels of land, and they total about 290 acres. And so they have a contract to purchase this property. I've been working with them on this for many, many months, sort of slowly, quite honestly, just to sort of get an idea of what they want to do. And in their contract, in order for them to perpetuate or fulfill their contract, they were required to file a zone change request. So I filed for an RM4 zoning on the property, which is residential, 4 units per acre. We deferred that and probably defer it again. Quite honestly, it doesn't have to go that quickly. It's just something that needed to be done contractually in order for them to, continue to work on this property. So I took this drawing right here, which is an outline of the property, and I added contours to that these contours, these orange lines that you see, if you were to blow that up, each individual line represents a 2-foot rise in elevation. And so the area out in here, it starts to get fairly steep, but you can notice the green areas are more flatter areas that are easy to develop on. How many people live on Cato Road that's in this group? Okay. Or have access or used Cato Road to get to a subdivision. So one thing that when you file for a base zone change, you can't really add any conditions. I think what will happen on this is that base zone change at some point will change into a specific plan, and a specific plan will give more details. And one of the things I told them is that there can be no access to Cato Road. So that maybe alleviates a little bit of concern, hopefully, that there won't be access to Cato Road. The access to this property, if it occurs, will be from Ashland City Highway. So do you have a question? Yes, ma'am? Mm-hmm. Are you on the north side? As you're going down Ashland City Highway towards Ashland City? It's just right off the corner. I couldn't get it to fit in here. It's just right off the corner of the map on the right-hand side. There's one little parcel that shows there that's next to Ashland City. That parcel is actually zoned industrial. Okay, we're at where Cato Road. Okay, hey guys, look. I'm here. Okay.
Anywhere in our neighborhood. Yes. It's zoned
Okay.
145.
I am not going to listen to that, okay? There's going to be two or listen to me. I'm here. I'm not here to be told what I can or cannot do. I'm here to get information from you.
We don't want your information. We don't want your development.
Okay. Does he speak for everybody in this room? I mean, really? If y'all will be quiet, I'm sure there's someone in this room that may not want you to take over this meeting. So I'm asking you, I'm not telling you anything.
You're not going to do it.
Oh, okay.
You're going to stand in your way every step of it.
Okay.
How could you think putting 1,160 units that drain into each street that floods is any kind of a good idea? I'm just curious.
Okay, let me answer her question first, okay? Can we just be cordial? I'm not here to have any kind of anger, animosity. I'm here because I'm hired to be here by someone that wants to develop a piece of property, just like if you wanted to develop yours, okay? So I know that you don't want it. I got it. You were very loud and clear, okay? So just be cordial. So you said something about where Cato Road gets on Ashland City Highway. Now, okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. 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 So I went down Cato Road on my way over here because I know that area off of. I believe you. Okay. I believe what you're telling me. Okay. I believe it 100%. I'm not doubting what you're telling me at all. So I drove down Ashland City Highway onto Cato Road because I know that area, Cato Road's in an area called Neighborhood Evolving, and I know there's a lot of things that are proposed there. There's a lot of new developments that are proposed there. So when you come up Bradley Parkway, you turn right on Ashland City Highway, Cato Road comes in on that side, okay? And so I'm not saying that any development there is going to increase or decrease traffic. Obviously, it would increase traffic on Ashland City Highway. And what was probably going to happen as a result of all the development on Cato Road, which this is not going to connect to Cato Road, but it will have an impact on Ashland City Highway, that at some point there'll need to be a traffic study done. And at some point, there may warrant a light at Cato Road. That's probably what's going to happen. There's a lot of pressure on Cato Road right now based upon the developments that are going in. If it's taking you that long to come out, it will probably warrant some type of improvements. Metropolitan government doesn't do that. They don't do that at all. It will be left up to some developer or a group of developers or whatever, but at some point it's going to reach that pecking order or that peak point. So, yes, ma'am. Sure.
That's fine. I think what bothers me the most, and I mean, there's no really easy way for me to go around it to be nice about it. And you probably recognize me because I've seen you at other community meetings. Anything it seems that you bring to District 1 or 2, it is something that the community doesn't want. And I've kind of gone and looked at some projects that you've been associated with. To be honest, I think they're horrible looking, lackluster, they look industrialized. And the one is called Rivendell Woods Townhomes, Antioch. It looks cheap. And that's what really concerns me, aside from the number of units, is that it looks extremely cheap. It doesn't look upper class. And that's what concerns me, is that, you know, to be honest, your history with our community between 1 and 2 has not been good. It has been very bad. So, and I just left the meeting last night for District 2 where the developer is so wanting to please the community that he's put the pause and he's brought people in to say, what do you want? This is what's, you know, and people said, you know, what they wanted. And he wants to raise the bar because we don't need anything that's going to bring us down further. And if you're just going to slap a bunch of apartments up with siding on them and, you know, and it's just going to be a bunch of mass clutter, you know, not to mention the number. I guess the number of units is what I'm kind of like, what? But that's my issue, is that I have not seen the level of quality from the developments that you've been associated with.
Well, I'm an engineer, I'm not a developer, so I don't build anything. Well, I do probably, if you look at all the zoning that occurs in Davidson County, I do the majority of it. I do the majority of all the zoning in Davidson County. And the reason I do that is because I like to have community meetings and I get communities involved. So if you think that I'm involved in some inferior projects, it's just not true. I deal with communities a lot. My hope on this, for this first meeting and beyond, is to do exactly what you said, to find out what's going to be built, the quality of what's going to be built, the size of what's going to be able to be built, the number of units that's going to be able to be built. Just a second. So what I filed for was just a base zone change. This property is not going to be zoned RM4. It's not going to happen. I just basically filed a zone change as a marking place or a setting place. This will, if it occurs, will be a specific plan, and it will be as detailed as you want it to be with whatever requirements or restrictions that you want. That's a process that I go through, and I go through it all the time. If you talk to any of the members of the Planning Commission, they'll tell you I have more community meetings than anybody else that comes before the Planning Commission. So don't mischaracterize me. I can show you many things I'm involved in. You can talk to other council members and they'll tell you that I'm not representing inferior developments. As a matter of fact, when people come to my office, I research them. I determine whether I feel like I want to represent them or whether they're proposing or whatever they're proposing, does it work or does it not work? Yes, sir. You want to use this? Okay. There you go.
I'd like to know why we're even here having this conversation. We have a T2 rural maintenance transect and a conservation overlay over this entire property. Now, Mr. Hall used to appear in 2 meetings and said that the way we could stop the next dump is because there's a conservation overlay. And just before everybody left the meeting while you were talking in May, saying that conservation overlay was the way to protect against dumping. There's a conservation overlay that happens over this now. So it seems to me we have a conflict here. You saying we can use conservation overlay to protect the way things are, and we're talking and saying the conservation overlay is fungible, that we can reapproach Nashville next. We can review these things because nothing's written in stone. Well, that's fine. Let's have a community process. We just had one for years and years that resulted in a T2 rural overlay and a conservation overlay. So what I want to know is why you even thought it was reasonable to put an RM4 zoning application in when it's clear there's a conservation overlay and a T2 transect. Like, it's such a huge, like, radical departure from what the community has already said is here. Also, why is Mr. Overby not here? Because you said he invited him.
You said Mr. Moore? Oh, okay. Okay, as I had explained before, my client wants to purchase the property, and part of his contract is he had to begin a zoning process. So that's what he's done. He simply filed for a zone change request. That's what he's done. It doesn't mean that we can't take all the time in the world through the community to do specific plans or even discuss policy. That can be done. When he came to me, I looked at the policy. That's the very first thing I do. When anybody comes to my office, and they come every day, all day long, I've encouraged anybody in Nashville that's going to develop a piece of property, come talk to me, because I can look at policies. I can look at, just a multitude of different things. And so when they first came to me, I looked at it. I looked at the policy, and in my opinion, and we're not going to debate this. We can all have different opinions, but I'm going to answer his question. In my opinion, the policy of rural policy is misplaced on this property. That's based upon the fact that it's across the street from industrial. It has industrial on the property. This property drains towards sewer. If you look at what a rural maintenance policy is all about, it has to do with the locations of those policies, have to do with access of utilities, access of roadway, topography, many different factors. And in my opinion, this property should not be placed within that policy. Maybe we'll go through a policy change. That's part of what we're going to talk about, or that's part of what we're going to discuss. There's nothing that's not on the table here that I'm not willing to do.
Love that.
What? Do what?
The planning group already said it's a terrible idea.
I disagree. I disagree. Let's not do this.
The schools
Let's not do this.
hundreds of houses under the current zoning. Why are you being?
I'm not the owner or the developer. I represent somebody. Okay. Okay. I disagree. We can just disagree, okay? I think the policy is not correct here. There is actually. Okay, I got it. I understand. You like your open space. You like living in an area that you consider to be rural. The county's growing. There's pressure everywhere.
There's no room in the schools.
Well, let's talk about the school. Y'all tell me about that. How's the population in Whites Creek High School? How's that working out? Somebody here probably knows better than I do. Are there enough kids at that school right now? Okay, I'm unaware of that. Is that true? White Creek High School is at its capacity.
How much money is Floyd Dale giving you in the last 3 years? I know he's giving you over $1,000. So we can have that conversation. What we can't do is distract from the actual conversation we're having, which starts with this one component. You decide what goes, what does not go, what it looks like, what it doesn't look like, all of it. The point of having, to his question, in having multiple meetings, they're required, but they do an application to do 2, if not 3, minimum. Beyond that, they can't move forward if they not have any community meetings. So their job is to come in and say, tell us what you want, this is what we're proposing. If you don't want it, you change that. It's literally that simple. Just tell them what you want or don't want. That's what they have.
Councilman, can we get clarity on what we're talking about? This little map is new to me. Are you telling me that the zoning AG2 RM4 includes this area here?
Everything in black is this
So
property.
this is.
If it's in black.
So there's a zoning sign on Ashland City Highway.
Let me see. There should be.
There are 4 zoning signs all the way down on Cato Road, all the way down. There's maybe 6 families that would go by there. My question is there a zoning sign on Ashland City Highway where this is
Should be. Should be.
So the answer to that.
Why are you yelling? Why? Really?
The question is there a zoning sign on Ashland City alerting the people that travel Ashland City that this is being rezoned for 1,100 houses? On Cato Road. The signs are on Cato Road.
There should
Are
be.
there signs on Ashland City Highway? I didn't see them.
If they're not assigned there, they'll, okay, I don't know. We put signs up, no, whatever signs we're asked to put up, we put them up.
So people don't even realize.
Did you hear what I said? Yeah. There should be a sign there. If it's not, it's either blown away or somebody got it. It's okay. We'll put more signs there. This is not going to go to the planning commission. Yeah. Yeah. Don't worry about that. We'll sign it up. Okay. It will not be a problem. Yeah. But before this goes to the planning commission, we'll have to re-advertise this and there'll be new signs with the dates and all that. And I will make sure that those signs are put up. Now I can't keep them up. If someone wants to take them down, I can't control that. I hope that doesn't happen. Okay, perfect. Okay, good deal.
Young lady has a question. And then Joe.
Yeah. Hi, my question is this. I think you're proposing some type of development of, is it 290 units? What are these? Is it 290 units?
Acres.
How many units are going to go up here? Are these single-family homes? Are they townhomes? Are they apartments? What is it?
So it will most likely be a combination of all that. So I'm going to explain like classifications of zoning. I think the lowest RM zoning that we have is RM2. The next one's RM4. So my client applied for a base zoning. He would propose to be anywhere between 2 units to 4 units per acre. He's not going to take this through as an RM4 zoning. It's not going to be 4 times 190, 290 units. It's not going to be that. It'll change to a specific plan that will give you the exact number of units, probably a layout, a mixture of units. Like on the project that we did in Springfield, like I said, there were like 200 single-family homes. There were 100 townhouses and cottages. And there was a multifamily, apartment style unit in there. There's about 200. So we'll work out the percentages. We'll work out the layout. We'll do all that. We'll stay off steep slopes. We'll do all that. I simply wanted to start a process within the community. I couldn't help that I had to file for a zone change. That was required by his contract. But that's all we've done. Nothing has proceeded beyond that point. Here, let me let you.
Already do family homes under the current zoning. Want more.
Yeah, it's zoned for 140 homes on 2-acre lots, and they're going to put 160. And all the zoning told us, the zoning planning commission told us that all this talk about is once the zoning's there, they can build anything they want within the existing one. So all this happy talk is just that, happy talk.
That's not true. That's not true. That is not true. That's not true. That is simply not true. That is.
One house on every 2 acres.
Okay. What you're saying is
And
not.
area 4, it's zoned for 4 houses per acre. That's 1,160. Now, you can say anything you want, that's what the zoning issue is.
So everyone's familiar with the specific process, right? It goes,
I apologize, but we are not going to yell in this facility. We're going to have a civil conversation. If you want to speak, please raise your hand. Someone will bring you the microphone and we can have a conversation with each other. But we're not going to be yelling in here, okay? I appreciate your cooperation. Thank you.
so specifically, the process. Planning is first. Planning requires the community meetings, which we're starting now, or which we've already started. We'll have as many as necessary. So that you guys can articulate your position and make all of these points that we're talking about now. But that process is the very beginning of the process. Nothing happens within the next 6 months to a year minimum, simply because it will take that long to actually get to the planning process, have these meetings, and even after that, required meetings, whether it's approved or disapproved. If it's disapproved at planning, it may stop there. If they try to move forward, we would still continue, and it still has to go through the entire council process. There is nothing happening anytime soon. And you are involved in control what happens at each step of the process. This is what we've been talking about. Even a couple of weeks ago, when this first came up, we talked about not paying any attention to the RM4 that was put on the initial application and saying it would require an SP to even start the conversation. We talked about the fact that access to Cato Road versus Ashland City Highway. What would that look like? What does that mean? What would come with that? When would you initiate a traffic study? All of those steps have to be taken. So we are at the very onset of the conversation, guys. Relax. You have control at each step. But when we decide, however you decide, you have to have covered all of those bases. It only helps us the next time. It only helps us every time we do this to make sure that we cover each of those steps. To Joe's point, and he's getting ready to ask a question, but he mentioned several folks have been through the charrette process before. Lean on those folks to help you through that charrette process, to help everyone through that process. They know the questions to ask. They know what to look at. These are the steps that we have to go through. But we can't just get in a room every time, have a shouting match, and then nobody's articulating any particular point, and we're still forgetting that this is at the onset.
So, Mr. Dale, thank you for coming out. I live in Scottsboro, Bills Bend area. I think everybody in this room knows what we've done over the years is people have come in and say, hey, we've got a better idea of what you need here. And with all due respect, you're telling us, after we've gone through, God knows how many Nashville Next meetings, I can't even recall how many I attended, to work hard to develop a vision of what we wanted for this area. And it's in place. We worked hard, the vision's in place. Now that vision is not your vision, and that's fine. You have a right to come to this meeting, say what you want to say, and you can try to explain the fact that it's zoned for proposition for 4 rather than 2A, which is where we're at. But the reality is we have already spoken. We have already spoken. We went through Nashville Next, Jonathan. That was not a fraudulent process. We worked hard on that. And unless we can see something to contravene something we spent years on developing, I can't believe that you're here. I really can't. Oh, wait a minute.
Okay, wait a minute. And then too, I think what has been lost in translation in this is that, Jonathan, you were elected by this district to represent us on what we want, not what you want, not what a developer wants. You get paid to do that. That is not a free thing. And so at the end of the day, if I asked you to pick between green and orange and I don't have a vested interest in which one you pick, I don't care which color. It's left up to you. But if you're trying to force me to pick orange over green, then I'm going to wonder, why is that? Because it shouldn't matter to you. It shouldn't matter. So really at the end of the day, this should be a done deal when the community's saying they don't want something. And like I said, Mr. Dale, I mean, I hate to tell you that, but I have not seen anything that your name's been attached to that I like. And that's just my opinion. That's my opinion. And when everybody in here knows me, I look at stuff, and if I don't like it, I'm gonna tell you it's ugly. I don't like it. You can fix it. You haven't brought any pictures. You haven't brought anything to make me even remotely change my mind from past meetings where, to be honest, everybody, they were similar to how this came about. The way everybody's interacting in here, I saw that same thing of where people got so upset because they felt like they were being force-fed something they didn't want. and you know where you are. You know what community you're in. You're in a community that has been mistreated, abused, disrespected for decades. So when you're hearing that, it has to sink in your head. You have a job to do because I know you're getting paid, but don't forget, you have a job to do and you're getting paid too. And your job is to represent us.
And the very first part of that is obeying what? That process that we're going through now, those meetings, that's just what's required. I'll give you the best example and most recent. When we talked about the transfer station, it was a requirement by law that that process took place. A lot of people said, why are we even having the meeting? Because we're legally required to. The correlation to that is what you saw happen a couple of years ago with the grease plant over in District 2. Because they didn't have the meeting, because they did not go through the process until after the fact, the state law had already kicked in and said within a certain time period from them filing that application, if you did not follow those steps, it went into effect by law. So sometimes we have to avoid things like that, but we have to go through the process at least to have those conversations. Of course, but we still have to go through the process. They still have to have at least 2 or 3 meetings. Oh, he's already very much aware of that, because the Zoom meeting that we had with residents, he's seen that and he saw everything from this last meeting. We've had that conversation, have we not? He is perfectly aware of how everybody felt before ever even coming, but they're still required to go through the process, guys. For planning, ask him now. Is he? So that's the perfect segue to this, and we mentioned it at the last meeting. Those things, exactly what you just said, is what you convey to him, so he doesn't come back empty-handed. He comes back with that, or they come back with nothing. Let me get him real quick. He was next.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Zach Deere. I actually live in Whites Creek with Friends of Whites Creek. We are actually, it's funny, I'm over here in this district because I believe that, Whites Creek in general and Bells Bend and those areas need to be preserved. We got so tired of guys like Roy Dale coming over to Whites Creek that we decided that we were going to just downzone our own property because the policy didn't matter. The planning department told us as much. They were like, Nashville Next is dead. We're going to basically build to the base zoning. So whatever that is, that's what we're going to build to. So the neighbors got together. We just downzoned almost 600 acres worth of property to 2-acre lots in Whites Creek. And if you guys want to find out more information about that, let me know. I'm going to be here tonight. The other thing I'll say is that there's a very good chance this guy's not going to be your council person in a couple of months. And please do not let him have his hands on the policy for your character manual. He's going to turn it over to this guy. So that's just my warning. Thanks for coming out.
I'm a relative neophyte in this whole process. However, I understand the process of things having to be done first and then next and next and next. My concern and my real concern is the lack of information that we receive for things that ought to be done. For example, this meeting I heard about from a friend, and I don't know what you do about processing and publicizing every third Thursday meeting that we were supposed to have, but when there's an issue of importance that's supposed to be something that affects District 1, we need to be informed and not somebody showing up with I don't know what the heck and where this is. I see black lines, but I don't see any streets. Like I said, I'm a neophyte to the process. I don't know the area and the zone, but I do know that this district is something that I live in and I care very much about. However, we need information. We need to be informed. We need to be able to do what it is you want us to do in terms of things first. This meeting has to happen before that can happen. Well, we can come to the meeting, but when people come to the meeting, they need to come prepared and not just come with stuff.
So specifically, again, and this is the first one that he's been to on this. And that's what we had discussed prior to this at the previous meetings of deciding and determining what we wanted to discuss with them, you letting them know your position, and then sending them back to bring back anything that it is you may or may not want. And then if you don't want to do another meeting, then we don't do one, but they're still required to at least attempt it. And in terms of specifics, what you want to see, like a map, how you want that map to work, that's something that can be easily provided. We've done that many, many times. I've come to meetings and passed out thousands of pages of packets.
Okay, well, I just want to tell you something real quick.
Let me tell you something. Last week there was the hearing. I called the commission planning. They told me that they didn't pass this new rezoning, but because there were too much opposition, Mr. Hall was trying to make this meeting, but already the planning commission say no. So if they say no, I don't know why Hall, they represent us, wants to push this rezoning.
Who did planning say no to? Because one of the things that we announced at the last meeting was that, and actually even on the Zoom, that planning had not responded to this property owner or potential buyer yet, and set up a meeting with them, and had not responded to us or the email that I sent. So but it got deferred despite that. I don't think they've ever still have met with them, but planning staff recommended disapproval. The Zoom meeting, yes. Right. Because they're still required to do those. If they pull that application, then they're not required to do any more meetings. If you guys tell them now, hey, pull it, we don't want to do any more meetings, we're not going to entertain it. You have to actually have the conversation with them in order to be able to do that. That was the whole point, guys. Let me get this clear.
Isn't a year in advance, this is 9th of next month.
Friend, I got you next.
It will not be on.
I like the lady who just spoke a minute ago. I'm a neophyte and I'm new to this process. I really wish that, as Mr. Taylor asked, that you would kind of calm down, because I don't know what's going on. You know, we're having all these conversations and I know there's a lot of passion here. But yet and still, I want to know, because I want to be informed about the whole situation. The other thing, what I would like to know is this. What is the process? I think Jonathan has explained. What is the process in terms of when we start from point one, when the developer wants to, has to rezone, what has to happen, and take it from there when it goes to the planning commission. And so we'll know step by step what has to occur. Some things we may not want to occur, but by law, it has to occur. And so I would like to know, I don't know if anybody else wants to know, what the steps are. You said it's what zoning change request. What happens after that? You meet with the community, they say blah, 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 blah. What happens after that? Do we have to have so many meetings? Okay, if we have those meetings, what happens in those meetings? After you have the meetings, what happens after that? Until it gets to the planning commission and whatever. That's what I'd like to know. Huh?
Okay, I want to say something that's going to make you feel a little bit better, I hope. I told you I represent a lot of things before the Metro Council, okay? Items that go before the Planning Commission are either recommended approved or recommended disapproved. I can't think of the last time I had a bill that went to council that was disapproved. I work with the community. I try to come up with a plan. If the plan doesn't work, I generally just stop. So I don't normally represent a disapproved plan. I can't think of the last time I had one. I'm going to explain the process so you'll know how that works. Okay? So do what? Okay. When did I put an industrial warehouse in your neighborhood? No, I don't remember. Okay, all right. That's just a ridiculous statement. It's a ridiculous statement. So you just check. You go look at all the council agendas and you look at all the zoning bills and you look at all the ones that say Dell and Associates and you tell me how many are disapproved bills. You won't find anything. Y'all are just so lovely. Okay, I'm going to explain the process. Okay, so what happens is a client will come to me and he'll say, Roy, I'm looking at rezoning a piece of property. I'll pull up the land use policy. I'll look at everything and I'll advise him. Many times I'll say, no, that's not going to work, or it might work. Okay, so ultimately, if a plan is put together, it's submitted to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission goes through about a 5 or 6 week review process. They'll go to all the different agencies, they'll get input, and based upon all that, they'll set this to be on the Planning Commission's agenda. There is no required community meeting whatsoever, none. You don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. I don't have to have a community meeting. It can go directly to the Planning Commission. When it goes to the Planning Commission, it's advertised. You'll get people within a certain radius will get letters. There'll be signs that are placed on the property, and it goes to the Planning Commission. And what happens at the Planning Commission is that if there's anybody there to speak in opposition, they take it off the agenda, and there's a public hearing at the Planning Commission level. The applicant has 10 minutes to speak, to try to convince the commission that this is a good idea. This is going to take a few minutes, so I'll remember your hand. Everybody that's in opposition has 2 minutes to speak, and if there's 100 people, they'll let every 100 people speak, okay? Generally, what I'll do is I have as many community meetings as I possibly can to try to come up with some kind of agreement so there isn't any kind of strife at the Planning Commission level. Once the Planning Commission makes a recommendation, they'll either recommend approval or they'll recommend disapproval. It'll go to the Metro Council on first reading. First reading is automatic. Every bill on first reading is approved just on first reading. They don't take these separately. After it passes first reading, it's required to go through a 28-day advertising process. Again, signs will go up, letters will go out. It'll be scheduled for a public hearing at the council. Public hearings only occur the first Tuesday of every month. When this comes to the council, if it's an approved bill, the council member basically just stands up. There's no presentation whatsoever. They'll open a public hearing. Those in favor can speak. Those in opposition can speak again, 2 minutes each, as long as you want as many people as there are. And then the council member at that point in time makes a decision on whether to proceed on or not. Generally, they may even ask for approval on second reading with the option that they can always modify things on third reading, which occurs 2 weeks later. At the council level, the council member can defer it if he wants to, as long as he wants to do it. And then once it's past third reading, it's signed by the mayor and approved. Now, one little difference here is that if there's a plan approved by the Planning Commission, it requires 21 of 40 votes at the council. If it's disapproved by the Planning Commission, it requires 27 out of 40 votes. It's not a whole bunch of difference, but there are council members there that if it's disapproved by planning, they just won't support it. That's just what they do. So that's the process as far as the legal process is concerned. Zoning is a legislative process. Only council members can do that. Nobody else can do that. As far as I'm concerned, I cannot remember the last disapproved bill I've had at the council level. Generally, I work with the community as long as I can, and sometimes that may be a year. It's a long period. It's a long process. The reason I didn't want to come here with a plan is that I've learned that if I came with you to a plan, I laid a plan out, you would say to me, you didn't get my input. You put a plan together and we didn't have any input in that plan. That's what I would hear. And I know that because I've done it a million times. It's better for me to start going to communities. Maybe there's 10 community meetings like this. Maybe there's 15. I don't know. To start gathering as much input as I can. Now, I know from this meeting that you don't want it, will never support it. You will never support it. You might never support it. But there will be a group of people that will listen and they'll talk and they'll at least try to help me come up with something that's the best I can possibly come up with. It may not be good enough, but it could. As far as National Next is concerned, we did National Next for the whole county. It was back in 2015. There's no way on this planet that they could do National Next and not make holes or mistakes somewhere. So it's constantly being looked at, constantly being looked at, constantly being looked at. I don't know, I hope I answered your question. You don't need to fear me, I promise you that. I will work with you endlessly, and I want to come up with something that will work. If I can't, then I'll probably back away.
Hold on one second.
Good evening. I just wanted to kind of touch on what the lady here was saying about communicating with us about the meetings. This meeting did not go out through your, how usually you send it out through national.gov. This is the way it needs to be communicated one way every time, okay? Because an email goes to the community, District 1, and that's way we can spread it to other people in a appropriate way. Otherwise, like I tell somebody and they're like, oh, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that. I learned about that just 2 hours ago. I mean, it's just not the way to treat us as a community and as a district. I mean, we deserve better as far as communication. And just ask that you communicate better with us so that we can communicate. It would be plenty more people here tonight than is here. But a lot of people do not even know about this meeting or that it's going on because it was not properly communicated. Okay, so I just ask that you please communicate every time this way, not one way, okay, that we get this, because this is the way that it's supposed to be communicated as the government has asked that it be communicated. That's one way, that it come through an official email communication to us every time. So I just ask that that be one way that you please communicate to our district each time. Thank you so much for your help.
So, and just to follow up on that component, and I got an easy, so
So I'm looking at a picture where the property is for sale. So now, maybe I'm overthinking, but I'm thinking, okay, so I'm gonna buy a property based off of if the zone changes. Well, once the zone changes, that will increase the value of that property. I'm gonna turn around and sell it to somebody else and make a windfall profit. You walk away, we don't know what we get after that, because whatever you told us becomes null and void because you're no longer in the mix, but you were the handler that changed the zoning, which made it more profitable. That's what I'm looking at. When I'm looking at this, I see that because I do believe that has happened. And then I would like for you to state why planning disapproved, because it has disapproved all over it. So that's what I'm seeing that's going to happen. So unless someone's going to put into, which I still say no altogether, but let's just say by some chance it gets somewhere, it needs to be documented that if that property gets resold after you are involved, it basically, the process should start all over again, and it needs to go back to the way it was, and the new person needs to start the process over, because that's what, this is a red flag, because this is exactly what I'm seeing is going to happen, is that the property will be resold at a much higher value.
I think he wants her to speak.
All the way to the railroad tracks, Jonathan, walk.
That's not enough.
It is. Stay in lane. He said, I can have the money, but someone sold it.
Excuse me. I had a mic. I want us to be real. And a lot of folks may not like this, but we all know that when there's something that goes before the council, planning commission, whatever the councilman is in favor of is what they vote through. I have been to planning commission meetings to talk about stopping someone from doing something in my area, and they still did not listen to us. They passed it through. It's whatever the council person, if he's in favor of it, the other council members say, okay. So, Jonathan, if you're listening to, if we have agreed that some developments are not, we don't want certain kinds of developments in the area, it may be good to you, but we don't think it's good. And so therefore, I think that you should take into consideration what the community wants. And because that's what happens, regardless of what they vote on and what they say and what they present, whatever the councilman says, okay, that's good, then it gets agreed to by all of the other councilmen and it gets voted through.
So specifically to that point, guys, what I was just thinking is that doesn't answer there's a link on there called Lincoln. It tracks how councilmen vote. I've never voted for this. I don't want to rezone for things all the time. We said no to everything and nothing to do. Matter of fact, you can even look at the things that were the most vigorous outside of landfill associated stuff, things like ready mix and other developments. The physical development on Kings Lane last year that I feel even before having the community, it was just beyond the scope of reasonable. And set down two specific community members on that lot, and he never followed up in that because he knew what was going to happen. So it's one thing to insinuate it, but it's another thing to look at the record. I've never voted against anything that the community asked.
Let me answer her question just before we get another question. So almost all zoning in Davidson County is done by specific plan. And specific plan basically lays out in great detail what can or cannot be developed. So I know my client wants to develop the property, but let's just say he decided to flip it to somebody else. He could get it rezoned. He's going to sell it to somebody else. That's why it's important when you put the specific plan to put all the details in that plan of what you're looking for, what you want. If someone else picks up that property and they try to develop it, they have to follow the conditions of the specific plan. So zoning is really not, and I tell this to a lot of people, zoning is not really based upon person. I mean, I can come up here, I can show you elevations and pictures and all kinds of wonderful things. The zoning is only going to be protected as good as you put that plan together and all the elements and all the restrictions that you put in that plan. So that's what would happen here if this proceeds, is that it'll be as detailed as y'all want it to be detailed.
Was mentioned a little bit ago, upzoning and downzoning.
Okay.
That's part of that overlay conversation where sometimes an overlay may not fit. You always have the opportunity to up or down your property. One example of that is you've got people who are filing applications to upzone just to increase their property value with no intent of doing it. That's how you ended up with a lot of stuff that happened in South Nashville and East Nashville. Those are also the two areas of the city the last decade where you saw all those disapproved bills getting passed. Council members almost never push forward on a disapproved bill for planning because it may not seem like a big number, 21 to 27, but it is not an easy task to get 27 votes to override a disapproval by planning commission. It's one reason why most things die at that point. The other thing that you want to be mindful of in that conversation is, despite Nashville Next, every day somebody is making an application for something, and we have to go through the process each time. It's simpler when people know, one, don't. Developers should pay attention to that. Most that have come to District 1 in the last 7 years, over the last 2 council members, found that out pretty fast. But nothing that was disapproved by planning has ever been passed to council. So why are we here? They already disapproved. Because we had already set the meeting at the last meeting here. We started to discuss it because it had not been deferred yet on the agenda. Then we had that Zoom, and that was the same time that it was deferred, and planning staff recommended disapproval. They had not met with planning yet. Why were you still trying to do?
All right, I got the mic. Let me say something.
It's not, we're following through with what we said we were going to do with the second meeting. Everybody that was notified on Cato, they had organized a Zoom meeting.
All right, real quick. Let me tell every one of you. Let me tell all of you how important the planning commission meeting is. We had 3 pieces of property that our councilman was trying to rezone up in Jordan. He scheduled a meeting, but like here, he didn't advertise it very well. But I was managed to get the message out. We had probably 150 people at that meeting. And there were 3 people that actually stood up and spoke against it. We go to the planning commission meeting. Our councilman gets up before the planning commission and presents his bill and asks for approval and says that there were 3 people that had a meeting with 150 people there, and there were 3 people that were opposed to it. Fortunately, we had collected signatures of 280 people that were opposed to it. And when we presented that package to the planning commission, it was real quick that they realized that the citizens were against it, and they voted it down for disapproval. So the planning commission is key. And when it comes up to the planning commission, I would urge you to try to be there. And as you mentioned, ma'am, it don't make no difference if you're there or not. You're one person listening to the planning commission, and they see it as one person. So I would ask you to do the same thing that we did. Either sign a petition saying that you're opposed to it being rezoned to RM4. Let them know you're opposed to that. And I think somebody specified earlier that it's already zoned for additional houses, but not this many. So if that's what you're okay with that, then make that clear. We're opposed to RM4, but we will accept the current zoning that's already there. And I'd make that very clear. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take it upon myself right now. And all of you in this room that are opposed to RM4, stand up. If you're opposed to RM4, stand up. All right. It looks like, Mr. Councilman, that the overwhelming majority of the people in this room that are attending this meeting are opposed to RM4 zoning. So I would ask you to express that to the planning commission should it get that far.
So I'm Judy Cummings, and I served on the planning commission for 12 years. I never took a dime. Roy has come before the planning commission several times throughout those years. What Gary just said is absolutely correct. The planning commission listens to the community. All of those hours of work that we did on Nashville Next was not for naught. We just have to stand our ground, stand our position. Anicia is absolutely correct. Councilman, you work for this district. You have heard our opinion about this particular piece of property. We know that once the zoning is on there, it's a done deal. Doesn't matter who else buys it after that. It's done. So, Gary, I'm gonna charge you, we need to get a petition together so that we are ready and we go before the planning commission. We may not have t-shirts on, but we'll have those names with the addresses, and we can do that. We can get that information so that the planning commission understands what we want on this particular piece of property, and that is the zoning that is already there.
I'm going to save you a little time again because this will not be RM4 zoning. So you can get a petition and say no RM4. It's not going to be RM4.
That's to start the conversation with planning about changing the policy. So our pool was never going to be on the table. We talked about that at the last meeting. That's why we mentioned, and the feedback was, if anything can be, he heard that immediately and knew that our pool was never going to work. There was a zoning change. You are correct. You do not want to go through a zoning change because people will look for problems. But it is exceedingly important to be as meticulous and detailed as possible in articulating on and don't want, because that travels with every piece of property and legislation. Somebody can pull that up 2 years from now, and they'll see those same stipulations. Now, what follows up to that Nelson meeting was what planning said after that. Planning also said, we hear the community, but because there were property owners who were proposing something with no plan to develop, they told they had to come up with a plan. They never did, so it was deferred indefinitely. That's why it didn't move forward. They never went back to try to do anything else because they were just trying to upzone their property to sell it. Those are folks who put it out. They're still trying to sell those properties, and they're still trying to do the same thing. That's being part of that process, guys.
So I want to reiterate to you, Councilman Hall, this request for communication. And I also want to state that it's the third or fourth time that it's been brought up in community meetings that there's insufficient communication and enrollment in the community to give this kind of feedback. This is not a new request. It happened in May. It happened in June. Very same thing where people are saying, we didn't know about this. We don't know what's going on. So I'm going to reiterate the request to be overly communicative to the community about what's happening and what we need to do about it. So thank you for that. Mr. Dale, would you please paint a picture? You're an expert at painting pictures. Can you paint a picture? Let's say I'm the owner. I'm James Over. I'm the inheritor of James Overby's estate, which is the case here. And I want to take maximum use of my property under the current zoning, AR2A. I want to get the most possible value out of that land. What does that look like?
In my opinion, you would divide it into 5-acre tracts. You cannot afford to put roads, water, and sewer in for 2-acre parcels. It doesn't work. The property is zoned AR2A. So that's agricultural, residential, 2 acres. So you could divide it into 2-acre parcels, but each parcel would have to have a public road, public water, and public sewer. And the cost of doing that for large acre tracts just doesn't work. And so if you were to ask me what you could do under the current zoning, that's what you're asking me right now, then I would say you're probably better off to divide it into 5-acre tracts. And the reason I say that is by state law, you can divide it in 5-acre tracts all day long. No planning commission, no government agency whatsoever. You can put easements, you can do whatever you want to do. You can split this property up a million different ways as long as each parcel is 5 acres. Now, the problem with that would be, let's say I do a 5-acre tract, but it's on a real steep slope or something. It may not perk. So I may not be able to get a building permit. So I hope that answers your question. You're really limited under the current zoning because of the cost. So is that okay?
The recommendation to your client then is to proceed with changing the zoning to maximize the benefit of.
Can everybody hear what he said?
So your recommendation to your client then is to change the zoning in order to maximize the benefit. Is that right?
So in this case, my client's not the owner. My client is someone that's wanting to develop property. And so when he came to me initially, I mean, I have a long history here, guys. I served on the Metro Council myself from 1991 to 1999. I know the history of Bordeaux, all right? I know about the landfill. I know about the attempted landfill Bell's Bend. I know you got 2 prisons. I know you got a county hospital. I know you get everything. You got another landfill across the street. I know all that stuff, okay? So I have history. I have a general feeling of what people might like or what they may not like. Now, you guys live in a rural area and you like that. I understand that, okay? There are other people probably in the Bordeaux area that didn't want to have to migrate to Antioch. They didn't have a place to live here, quite honestly. And that's what's happened. That's why the high school is diminished. That's why Antioch's overgrown with multifamily zoning, because people that were raised in this area had no opportunity to stay there. So my client came to me, and based upon that knowledge, okay, and based upon the fact that it's close to the interstate, Brawley Parkway, it has good access on Cato, on Ashland City Highway, it has availability of sewer. For all logical purposes, this property is something that probably could happen. May not happen, could happen. And that's all I'm like right here, and this is a lake or something, and I'm not going to just jump in, okay? I'm going to step my toe here to see how warm it is, and then I'm going to find out how deep it is. That's what this meeting is all about for me. It's not trying to push any specific agenda at all. And I may have other small meetings that I have myself with pockets of neighbors so I can see what their thoughts are. Jonathan will be in charge of setting up a huge community meeting, I'm sure, at some point in time, or I can do it too. But I'm not going to force anything on you. You'll find that out. I'll work my best to do the best job that I can and present it to my client, and then we'll see what happens. But you don't need to fear me. I promise you that. You don't need to fear me at all.
I have experience, and you guys remember the Ashland City Keto that is near to the church. So I was in the meetings, and they were selling to us. They are going to have 2 entrances and 2 exits. They never present any plan, and later they were saying it's going to be, like he said, house the people can afford for $200,000. Those houses they're making in that corner are more than $500,000. So I don't think, they sell us, they are going to make a house that we can afford. But at the end, the developer can do whatever they want to do. With all the respect, you make money like that. He's making money because this is his business. I don't blame him. I work in research. I make money doing research. But this is his business. So he's going to make money. So he wants to sell the project to us. Whatever happened is not his problem. He already made the money, with all the respect.
That's just not me. It's not me. You ask about me, that's not the way I operate.
This is not necessarily to you, Mr. Dale. Okay, but I've heard a lot, at each meeting about poor communication. And so I think it would be good for people to say here how they would like to be informed. Should it be by email? Should it be by, I think it was the Nashville.gov? Jonathan, can you tell them exactly, or maybe you can tell us, what is the best way to communicate to you, to tell you when this meeting or any other meeting is going to be held? We have Facebook, we have Nextdoor, Bordeaux Forward or whatever, all of those. And I guess you just have to search it. We cannot, as I understand it, put it in Kroger. We cannot put in the Bordeaux Library, and maybe the library in Joelton or whatever. And so we're a little restricted. But what is the best method for you to be notified of meetings? Now, at the last meeting, this meeting was set, okay, at the last meeting. Now, I think it would help Jonathan to know what is the best method to notify us of meetings. What he say? Okay. Okay. Right. Sure. Yeah. Right. Right. Okay, because I know we can't do that now. Okay, I just thought that, everybody wants to know about the meetings. Thank you.
My question is for Mr. Dale. I'm just curious. Can you tell us who your client is that you represent and what properties they've done? And then I'll have a couple of follow-up questions.
Stay close. My clients are out of Clarksville. George Volger and Tim Poston. They have a real estate company. They are currently, and when we meet again, I'll bring you examples, or maybe I'll bring them here also. But they're currently doing a development in Watertown. It is again it's a multifamily and single family mixture. They're to me it looks like they're really quality projects. They're not overly priced, but they're not subsidized or anything crazy like that. Yeah, no, not anything like that. And I'm working with them right now on a project in Springfield, which I took through an annexation and a rezoning process. Springfield welcomed them with open arms. They really want their area to grow. And it was a long process, but it wasn't that difficult of a process. So I'll bring some examples of what they would like to build. And anyway, go ahead.
And I just want to make sure everybody understands clearly what I was getting at. We do not want any more quote unquote affordable housing because that brings in incomes that are considerably lower, could bring in Section 8. The lower the income, it brings the overall area's income down low. Then we end up with nothing but fast food restaurants, Dollar General, Family Dollar, Dollar Tree. If you finally want to see something better in your community, then we're going to have to stop accepting stuff that is not wanted in other parts of the city. It cannot just be dumped in District 1 and District 2. So if they're going to do affordable, they need to put it in some of Green Hills, put it in Belle Meade, put it in Bellevue, but don't dump it in District 1 and 2. And I'm letting Councilman Hall know the same thing. We do not want a whole lot of low. It just, it's just not good. Thank you.
Every meeting, and this really started. Everybody was livid about that project because it was supposed to be the low, the mid to high state. Everybody saying that project was too many, too low. It was fearful it was going to subsidize the They raised the price of those properties and what they put in those properties to be in the free, now. Then everybody was happy. And the project should which don't pay no rules. Same argument. Everybody said we don't want rules, we don't want it to be low income, we don't want it to be something that can be subsidized, and the price went up. The services went up. Everybody here likes property value went up per square foot because of that. It did so well without even being built by all the costs for every price. They went up because they resold the townhomes in the first few homes without ever even cutting the grass or grading. So we have to pick our poison. We can't go lower on price. But if you go lower on price, you go lower on quality, you go lower in terms of income levels in the community. If you don't look like Green Hills, but we want the things that Green Hills have. Green Hills
have, because they can have double the average income per person and double the population. We got to find one thing that you can tell me that I encourage most developers, look at what you can build by right. So that's what it came up with this. Look at what you can build by right. The reason why I push that, especially in rural areas, is one particular reason. Look at the map that you guys have here. You know why this map looks this way? Because that land has been decimated. Look at the fall now. This used to be all trees now. We played back there. They've been grading and filling and tearing down trees and illegally dumping for 20 years. You got makeshift sites like that all over the district. We got a bad one on White Street Pike. We got another one up on Bingley that a lot of people don't know about this up there because the guy got a big hole and a slope who's letting people dump it. When you got that rural land, if you don't do something with it over time, you're going to just be more and more inundated with people wanting to do something with it. And when they run into a fight, then they end up taking the easiest route away from somebody, which ends up being salvage yards, junkyards, and land. That's why we're fighting the one we have now. The number one component for one box we've not been able to check for that landfill. We talked about this in the last 2 meetings. Rooftops. Rooftops. Because the only box we've not been able to check is what happened is we've been able to check the environmental box. We've been able to check the conservation box. We've been able to check the air quality box. But the first thing that's on that application for the state, the TDEC, and the Solid Waste Commission, one of the first things they ask is, what's the population that hasn't had a negative impact on population growth? One of the tools we may have used to like that landfill is the fact that you can't have a landfill within 2,000 yards of a park, and you got a couple of elementary right at the edge of that little playground that we're qualifying in the argument before it as a park. You got to pull out all the stops to stop something like that, because the number one thing is still going to be rooftops. It's like, despite this property, if you drive down there to 6 highway right now, you see 3 signs for sale. It's 600 acres over there on that hillside leading over to this property that the owners are all trying to sell. Nobody's just filed an application to do what these guys have done over this land. But the others are trying to sell their property as well. Also, like, go to the steps, have the conversation, because the next person filling out an application or wanting to come just saw what happened. Just saw the boxes that they had to check, just saw the questions that were asked. That makes people come better prepared, or it makes people not come. But those are still steps in the process you have to go.
Let me wrap up, and then, because I think, I appreciate your opportunity to speak with you guys. I will meet as many times as you want to. I don't want a bunch of yelling and screaming. I don't like that. That's not me. I don't like that. I'm not asking you to approve a development just for the sake of approving development. I'm not asking you to oppose something just for the sake of opposing something. My client wants to do a community. So let me try to earn that some way. I may not, maybe I'll be able to. But this is sort of the way I do what I do to get my temperature, to see what I need to do, to come up with the best plan I can need to come up with. I may have some other smaller meetings that you wouldn't all be advertised for, probably, if I want to meet with a group of neighbors. I haven't decided I'm going to do that, but I probably would like to do that. And at some point in time, we'll have a big meeting. We'll notify as many people as you want to. And Councilmember Hall can do that. I can do that as well. I'll give you a mailing list, or we'll use whatever. Generally, what happens on zoning is planning just draws this big circle, and then they give me a list of people that we mail to. It's based upon their circle. And so all those for sure need to be included, but we can go beyond that. We can go beyond that. It's no problem, because I see this as affecting more than just a small group of people. I'm hoping that something really good could happen here. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything calming down a little bit. You don't need to be worried. I'll take as much time as it takes. It'll be very transparent. You won't be blindsided. This will not be on the Planning Commission's agenda. I will defer this indefinitely, so that way you won't have to, if I defer it, it'll be just deferred to the next meeting, defer to the next meeting, and defer to the next meeting. I won't do that. Okay. Okay, so anyway. Okay, so we'll take our time, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Dale. So I actually did a little research on GVTP Developments, which is his client. And I do have an example of the Springfield development. So it's 568 homes on 90 acres. So that would potentially make this 1,700 homes. And then this question is for you, Mr. Dale. So I did some research of some of the developments that he's done in Bowling Green. And there are two that were very strongly opposed by the community. It was turned down twice by Planning Commission. He then took it to court to have it overturned. That was 100 homes on 40 acres and in a 360 unit apartment building. So what's to stop your client from taking it to court, even with the community's input?
So I've only represented him on the one project, and I'll be glad for you to pass that around because you'll see there's a sense of community on that plan. That site was fairly level, so you can't take a site that's on level property and compare it to a site that's got a lot of topography. You will not get the same density. As far as, I don't have any clue what he did. I could guess probably. And I'll make an educated guess. He probably was trying to do something on existing zoning. Maybe he took something to the Planning Commission. Maybe the Planning Commission turned it down. And when you do that, you have an opportunity to go through a court process and oppose it. But on a zone change request, that doesn't exist. So the zone change is a legislative process. Whatever the council decides, there is no taking it to court. So if you're doing a subdivision based upon right, which is something we talked about before, if my client wanted to do the subdivision by right, Planning Commission has certain requirements. If they didn't meet those requirements, Planning Commission could recommend disapproval. You could go to Chancery Court, and try to oppose that if you wanted to, but that's not the case on this. This is a zone change request. I did that zoning. I know very much how long that took, but yeah. But that got held up because of the economy and whatever happened in whatever year that was. I don't even remember right now when the housing market just died. Exactly. And so that's what kept that from developing. I think they had water issues or sewer issues. There were a lot of different things going on there. So that's why that one took so long. Yeah.
Remember, our biggest obstacle in policy is get it approved. And second, you didn't have the infrastructure to support something that big that they didn't know it.
Well, one of the questions I had and this goes back to the Falls project. That property is zoned RS-15, and you were touching on zoning codes earlier. What is RS-15? And I may have a follow-up after that.
You're good. So you're talking about the adjacent property to this on Ashland City Highway is RS-15. Okay. Okay. So RS-15 means residential, single family, 15,000 square foot lots. Okay. So almost all subdivisions in Davidson County are done as what's called a cluster. Clusters allows you to reduce your lot size down 2 zoning categories. So in that case, 2 zoning categories from RS15, RS10 is the next one, and RS8 is the next one. So you could do 8,000 square foot lots. You cannot increase the number of lots that would be allowed. But the reason they do this is because we have very stringent stormwater requirements, and you have to have open space in order for that to occur. Also, as we develop Davidson County, a lot of the flatter properties, they don't exist anymore. It's not going to be zoned RM4. I can promise you that right now. If it did, under the RM4, I think that I'm not sure you can cluster that, but you can still do single family lots. I'm going to assume that you probably can. So let's say it would be equivalent to an RS10 zoning, which means you could cluster down 2 categories, and those lots could be as small as 5,000 square feet. But yeah, it's the Metro right now is reviewing the whole cluster lot. They're rethinking it all. And the reason, I know I'm getting off subject, but the reason they're doing that is because, let's say you have all this property that's really large lots, but for whatever reason, the zoning is like RS15, and then they're allowed to come in and put little tiny lots surrounded by larger lots. Doesn't make a lot of sense. No, that would be the zoning, would be specific plan. Correct, today. It could, any property can go through another zone change process, but it'd have to go through that entire process just like we're going right now, without going through a whole zoning process again. So that's why when you do specific plan, you try to do it specific. You try to do it as detailed as you possibly can, which could be size of house, height of house, number of houses. There's really no limit to the conditions you can place within a specific plan. Yep. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. So I did all that zoning. Like I said, I do a lot of zoning. The Conifer property is a specific plan. It is so specific, it is not developing, okay? Because I did it so it had to be like a country store, and it had to meet the character of the community, and Shell or Exxon or whoever, they don't want to do that. So nothing's happening on it. The property across the street's just got a base zoning. It's like CL. So you can go to the codes, you can look up the list of what's allowed under CL. Anything that's allowed under CL could go there. I don't think you could. You said it's Conifer, right? Or I know it's Gifford too. Yeah, right. I know about the Gifford. I worked on that one too. I know about that too. Okay. I'll stay here and answer questions after this meeting if you want me to.
Mr. Dale, can you tell me the difference between deferring indefinitely and just voting it to be done with? In an indefinite deferral, is the same notification requirements as starting a new zoning process, or do we just hustle it? And secondly, I just want to say, everybody, I organize catoneighbors.org. You want to drop me an email at catoneighbors@gmail.com. I'll keep you up to date about what's going on with this property as well.
So the difference between deferral and indefinite deferral. So this applicant's paid a fee. He's paid a fee, just like if you file for a zone change request, you're paying a fee. They have to process that. They have to do something at some point in time. If I was to defer this every 2 weeks, I could do that, and you'd be wasting a lot of time. You'd have to be prepared to go to meetings, and then I could wait till the day of the meeting and defer it. You'd all be down there. I'm not going to do that to you. So there's too many questions here. There's too much that needs to be done. It'd be silly for me just to defer it to the next meeting and defer it to the next meeting. So I'm deferring indefinitely, which that means that until I tell them to put it back on the agenda, it doesn't come up. Now, when I tell them to put it back on the agenda, The advertising process starts all over again. It will not happen. Because they've paid their fee, what will happen is that application will be converted into a specific plan. They'll pay an additional amount, and it'll be like a new application. So it's deferred indefinitely. It's not going to come up. It'll be changed to a specific plan zoning at some point in time and re-advertised. I'm not sure I can just withdraw it, and if I do that, they may lose their fee that they've paid. So it's indefinite deferral. It's okay. I think it's just about like it's not anything that's on their agenda. Okay, until I ask them to put it back.
I want to, before you guys leave, I know it's a long night, but I just wanted to warn you against SP zoning. There was actually an internal audit that Metro did on itself about 2 or 3 years ago, and it showed that in the initial rounds when everybody's talking about what they want in the SP, everybody from Metro is involved, stormwater's there, everybody's checking stuff, double checking, triple checking. Literally 5% or something like that, like probably even less than that. After a couple of years, nobody's enforcing the SPs, nobody's looking into the SPs. They're literally doing whatever they want, but they pretend like there's something in there for you, but there's really just something in there for them. And I'm telling you, don't go SP zoning. It's a terrible idea. Thank you.
Actually, my question is for Councilman Hall. My name is Maggie Odell. My question is, so I understand tonight that you won't go on record as saying if you're for or against this project. Is that correct? I understand, but you. Would you support 500 homes? Right, but would you support 500 homes? That's 290 if I'm got my numbers correct. Right, but I'm asking you what type of density you support on this property. Okay. But you do understand that when you go to council, that you represent this body here, and we're just a fraction of the people that you represent. Okay. Well, would you also be willing to go on the record to say when you will provide us with a financial campaign disclosure that we haven't seen in over 2 years? Do you have an approximate ETA on that? Like I said, we've been waiting over 2 years. And for anybody who's not familiar, you can look this up. In the last 6 days, there was a public record complaint filed that he hadn't disclosed this. Yeah. I just want to make everyone aware.
One thing, some people like it, some people don't. You've been in this district in the last 10 years. Almost every time we talk about the rezoning, what's the number one suggestion for the rezoning? People ask for SP because it became a opportunity for folks that got used to it. But in almost every community, about every rezoning everywhere, and council was inundated with SP. Inundated is actually why in each area specifically, almost all your disapproved bills and planning were things that converted to that for base zoning that has maximum density. And council members in that area were able to get 27 votes. But that's why it was so because we have never done that. You go back and look at every piece of legislation that did before. Ironically, that site that I mentioned before, legislar, that tracks every piece of legislation proposed, passed, on with it. You can't find really council members currently in office that have voted more absolutely with their district than anybody else, even to the point of things that don't impact us directly. From property taxes, to soccer, to whatever, top three. I know we had at least 1 or 2 more questions. I'm getting the signal from my notes about 8 o'clock. He's got another meeting. There was one more.
I think we're good. I'm done. I'm worn out.
Now, because again, we already brought this up. Do you want to be again and have another conversation? You said, don't come with something that you guys got our input on. You gave your input. Do you want him to bring something back for you to look at? Based on what you suggested. So, if you go back and ask them, would they be interested in that, and put something together for that?
Current zoning? No, it doesn't work. Well, I'm saying under current zoning, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But that's not what this is about. They're requesting a change in zoning, okay? I'm good. I appreciate it, guys.
Hold on real quick.
Okay.
Oh, so real quick, 2 announcements. One, please, guys, the participatory budgeting, make sure you're going on that site, signing up on that email list and participating in that. We've got to make sure we keep people interested and involved through that site so that they can go in and make the ask that they need. Second thing is we were supposed to have another meeting in 2 weeks, which is our regular scheduled meeting, but there are 3 or 4 meetings scheduled in the area for that. So we'll skip one because we need to do the one with the school board rep and a few others. I've got a flock safety and school board. You want to do that one? Haynes Park and LPR camera legislation.
Okay, so you just mentioned about the school board meeting. I don't think anyone really, can you hold on for just a second? Can you hold on for just a second? I don't know if people are aware, but we've had issues with our schools over here, and I have been trying to correspond with our school board rep, Dr. Gentry, for a long time now. And she has sent me, after numerous attempts, I finally posted to Nextdoor about Robert E. Lillard. You all may have heard the rumors circulating that at one point there was talk of one of your council peers wanting to relocate the camp to our community, which was a no, no, and a no. And so the rumor is still circulating about what they're going to do with the vacant metro schools. My opinion, no school in this district, in this community, from Scottsboro, Jolton, anywhere in this district needs to be used for anything other than educational purposes that move upward, not downward. We're not going that route. So Dr. Gentry told me she was having a meeting. What was the date of your next meeting? It's on the Thursday of the third Thursday, but she was supposed to get back with me to tell me what the location was. And then there was a conflict with your meeting. I have yet to hear back from her. I have posted on Nextdoor and I will keep posting because in the past, she's told me that she was going to have a meeting. She didn't do it. I asked her if our schools were closing. She denied it. And then within 2 months, they were closed. So I encourage you to email her, call her, and let her know we're not sleeping and that she's also getting paid to do a job that she needs to do. Time's up. This is business. So people, when you find out the date of the meeting, and they should post it on MNPS's website, But with the other meeting, people that even live in the Buena Vista area did not know about that meeting until 5 hours before the meeting, and they were not able to attend. And then I heard rumor that there was rumor of doing some type of homeless services at that school. So it can happen if the community does not say what we want, we don't want, and that's it. And so, Councilman Hall, back to you. I texted you and asked you, was this meeting going to happen tonight? You never text me back. So I went on and put it on next door anyway. I've asked you to put on next door. You go to Hip Jolton and post all kinds of stuff because I go on there too. You need to start corresponding with the folks down here in Bordeaux too. But there are too many areas that you could do it that's easy. Facebook, Nextdoor, email. I mean, if you gotta go on the radio station, I forgot what that radio station is that they have stuff that a lot of people like listen to. You need to go on there because you keep saying it, but you don't do it. You keep saying it. It sounds good, talking points, but you need to do it.
And it's been twofold because one, it's taken almost a year and a half really to get more people involved going to the sites because it had always been on Facebook and on the national.gov, but a lot of folks weren't going to it. Real quick. And so, and that's where that email list of over 3,200 names goes out. And even if you didn't get one, you were literally sitting right here when we set the meeting. You gave us the date. You guys actually set that meeting right here 2 weeks ago. Real quick, before we forget and get away from Robert Lillard, here's what happened with Robert E. Lillard. I saw Dr. Gentry last night. She still wants to have the meeting, but hasn't said where. More importantly, where that conversation came from about Robert Lillard and the homeless. The first conversation was them wanting to use the Bordeaux hospital that they closed down. That was murdered just badly, right out of the gate, because another council person had suggested that'd be a good site. Fast forward, the mayor's office and emergency management is where that came from. Finally, Chief Swan called and said, hey, can we use that site to do put the homeless in, just a temporary shelter? You know what the response to that was. Then they were directed to a warehouse on County Hospital Road that was for lease by somebody. But I don't know if they had a conversation with Councilmember Toombs, because that first half of County Hospital Road where this is in District 2. But that came out of the mayor's office in emergency management wanting to use that school that way. That's where that suggestion came from. So council members at Nashville.gov and your mayor's office, please stop suggesting things of that nature. There are 3 schools, charter schools, that want that facility at some point. We knew one when they announced the school was closing. That's how we found out, because a charter school was asking to use it. So that's yet to be determined, same as Jolton Middle, but there's nothing homeless going in Robert Lillard, and ask the mayor to stop saying it. It's in great shape. Well, and listen, guys, that's one of the things that you hear me reiterate too. Literally, Metro Council has 0 say in what schools do. We only are allowed to write a check. We have no oversight whatsoever in how they use that money or what they do with those facilities. We strongly suggest. That's about it. But Dr. Gentry hasn't let me know where the meeting was going to be yet. I'm still waiting on that also. Any more? Appreciate you guys coming out. Please be careful leaving. Watch the construction.
So